welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. We've got some fascinating guests with us this morning, Tiina and George from FirstBeat. How are you guys?
Very good, thank you, Ryan. Good to see you.
Doing great, thanks a lot.
Brilliant, well, welcome aboard. And as always, my trusty sidekick, Dr. G, how are you?
Very good, Ryan. I'm really excited about this one. I love anything that helps us to think about physiology in our clients. Is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one since they registered. So probably a great place to start, guys, because obviously Glenda knows you guys really, really well because she works with you guys. But some of our listeners or viewers may not know who you guys are. So it may be worth just giving us a quick synopsis of who Tiina, who George is, and then quickly what FirstBeat is all about.
Right. Well, I start, Tiina, then you can go into talk a little bit more about FirstBeat. Right. Okay. So my name is George Kasparis. I am a partner executive for FirstBeat. I've been working with the company for just over a year now. My background is actually, I come from a sort of coaching background, so I'm actually for those of you familiar with it, I'm a PGA qualified golf professional.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But back in the day, so to speak. And spent most of my life in the Middle East. So I was out in Dubai doing that, teaching, running a facility out there. And that's also where I kind of had the opportunity to shift across, and I moved into the business world. And I started working for a sort of technology, data analytics company in the retail space. So with that kind of experience, plus my coaching background, when the opportunity with FirstBeat came along, I was like, this is perfect. I've got a passion for sport, passion for data analytics, and here we are. Here I am. I'm down in Devon in the southwest of England now.
Very nice part of the world. And yourself, Tiina?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm sitting here in Finland, central Finland right now. This is where FirstBeat is, and I'm an exercise physiologist by training, and I work as a master trainer at FirstBeat. I have been here a long time, for 16 years.
Wow.
Working with our international partners around the world, training them to use our methods and doing different kind of corporate wellness projects. Before my years at FirstBeat, I spent several years in academic research. I was at the University of Jyväskylä and Research Institute for Olympic Sports here in Finland.
Wow.
Involved in studies that looked at autonomic nervous system and different ways of non-invasively study, for example, overtraining in athletes. And from that, I sort of gradually converted into doing research on the FirstBeat methods, and I met the FirstBeat team and then ended up actually taking a job here instead of continuing in the research world. And if we go way back, like decades back into my youth, after my high school, I left and moved to Alaska. I was a Nordic ski racer, so my background is in sports as well. I was a ski racer, and I had a scholarship at the University of Alaska Anchorage. I skied there competitively for 4 years and got my bachelor's degree in physical education back then. And then I ended up working as a coach, Nordic skiing coach, for 5 or 6 years in local clubs, and then at the university for 4 years. So my roots are very strongly in sports coaching. And even if my current job, I worked with regular working age people, very much with topics like wellness and performance in normal life, I draw a lot of principles and good information from the sports world, and I still utilize that today. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that later on today as well.
Fittest people in the world, Nordic skiers, aren't they?
Pardon?
Fittest people in the world, Nordic skiers, apparently.
Just about, maybe us and rowers.
Yeah.
Ryan, I can assure you, Tiina will run rings around us, mate.
Well, it's certainly not golfers, George. Let's put it that.
No.
No, that
all cricketers, to be fair, that's my sport.
They don't go for a pint typically after they finish the skiing. It's more a sauna probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what's already fascinating me is that Tiina mentions overtraining in athletes, and we see the equivalent of that in normal life, don't we, with burnout or bore out, we like to call it. If someone's quite bored or someone's overworking and then they get to burnout. And I think that this product could be incredible in the coaching space. And as a coach myself who coaches resilience, I'm really going to be fascinated about how we can use data and physiological data to help us just perform better in life. I think that's just amazing. So
yeah, that's actually a great bridge to the background of FirstBeat, the company.
yeah, go for it.
Because that was exactly like Glenda said, that was our roots. We were the team at the time, about 20 years ago, they were doing studies to try to determine overtraining in an athlete before it's too late, some kind of a non-invasive method to detect it early enough and still save the athlete's season in a way. And at that time, the research team sort of realized that us normal people, if we overdo it, if we overload ourselves with work and all the pressures of life, and we don't have enough recovery to balance that, we get overtrained physiologically in very much the same way as an athlete does. And that's kind of where the current wellness part of our business that really strongly came from that line of thinking. And today we have these two segments still. We have the elite sports side that provides solutions for example, top-level teams in all the major leagues around the world in football, rugby, ice hockey, basketball, American football. So we have product for that, but then we have this wellness, corporate wellness side. That's a coaching tool for regular people, and that's what we'll mainly be talking about today. But those are sort of the two sectors that FirstBeat consists of, and our corporate headquarters in a way is here in Jyväskylä, Finland, which is in central Finland, about 3 hours north from Helsinki. But we do a lot of work in the UK, for example, and we have a great team, George and a couple of other guys there as well, and some smaller offices in a few other countries as well. So we work globally, even if we are based here in Finland.
I think, Tiina, I'd like to maybe for the listeners out there, and our listeners tend to be club owners, maybe operators who also not only have our day-to-day clients, but they also have corporate clients too, yeah? I think it would be brilliant just to understand a little bit more about how FirstBeat helps us to understand the overall load of life and how that helps us to improve performance, because I think that this will be very interesting to our fitness sector. I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the method FirstBeat Life, the idea of that is specifically to address that, what I often call the load of life. We use a small device that the client wears in daily life 24/7, typically 3 days at a time, maybe 2 days, sometimes 5 days at a time. And it detects every heartbeat during that measurement. And from that heartbeat data, we've developed some algorithms that then sort of transfer that data into information about stress and recovery and sleep and exercise. So that's kind of the method. And the idea is that because us people, we tend to get caught up in so many things going on all the time, and we become desensitized to this idea that what's too much and when is there too much stress or too much load in our lives. But when you can actually, like, for example, a personal trainer who has a client who is working a busy corporate job and is trying to train really hard, when they can see that concretely in a figure that shows what happened during different days and how they were able to handle that load and what their body said when they started training too hard or doing too hard, how did that affect their recovery, it can really help tweak and personalize that program for the client, taking into consideration everything that affects them in their life, not just the training program and the time that they have at the gym, for example, but everything else outside of that as well.
Ryan, that sounds like would be very useful for a little bit of investigative work for you, and the training that you're doing.
Absolutely. So I have chronic fatigue, Tiina. So obviously it's, and we don't know the root cause of it. I got diagnosed about 8-9 years ago, and which is quite interesting. When I was speaking to Craig, I had my watch on, because I know your technology sits behind that, and obviously does this sort of gives you your score, doesn't it? Your energy score for the day and stuff like that. And it's quite interesting because we were talking, and I'll often wake up with my energy less than 50%. which is quite scary when you think about it. You wake up with less energy than you ended the day before, though you've gone to sleep. So it's fascinating information to sort of go, okay, now I know that. I know today isn't the day to go and do that heavy gym session, because I still like to train. I try and avoid being, sitting around doing nothing. So, but I have to be careful when I train and how I respond. And before, it was very much around how do I feel in myself. And now I obviously have the tools to be able to do that properly.
I was actually going to ask you, George, if you think that Ryan's a typical client in a fitness club, what would you think would be the opportunity for FirstBeat with the personal training market then? Because for me, having been in the world of, I'm a previous operator myself, I've also got that background. It's quite amazing how people will present, and sometimes they're ready for the workout, sometimes they're not. What's the opportunity there for the PT to get a lot more inquisitive about what's really going on behind that load of life that Tiina talks about?
Yeah, so I mean, this touches really on the kind of point where I think something like FirstBeat is really strong for PTs, and if we look at, so take Ryan as an example, who, so chronic fatigue, still likes to train hard, works hard. The thing with Ryan and his personal trainer, one of the things that I see is super important is the relationship that Ryan might have with his personal trainer, right? So that's something personal trainers build. They're very good at building relationships. Coaches are in general, right? I've been there. I used to have great relationships with most of my clients, right? And over time, you get to understand more and more about what's going on in their life through conversation, right? And I think if you take the corporate environment, again, I'm speaking for a bit of experience here. I've done both, where you've got the stresses of corporate life, you've got the stresses of work, and then I've still got to go and get that training session, and you go and meet your personal trainer, how things, yeah, brilliant, everything's going great, but is it really? Because you're going home and you're not sleeping properly, you're not recovering properly, and I think having something like FirstBeat technology, where it's measuring the parts of your physiology that you can't control, right? So you can't control your nervous system response. So if you're not sleeping properly at night, you're not recovering properly at night, then that's going to be data that your personal trainer is going to say, oh, right, okay, Ryan, well, look, I saw you last night, you had a pretty poor night's sleep. Maybe don't come for that training session at 8 o'clock tonight when you've had such a hard day at work. Go and take a break, take some time off, and it just starts to give them some data behind what's actually going on in their life to help the more kind of holistic view of what they're doing. I
guess it also allows them to adapt in terms of the training as well, because I can imagine the data you guys get. I mean, obviously, I get very little snippet on my watch. It just tells me this is where you're at in terms of what's left. But obviously, with FirstBeat, in terms of working with you guys directly, I can imagine you get a lot of that data, and a lot more detailed data to sort of go, okay, well, maybe the cardio training isn't right. Maybe we need to adapt the style of training that we do. Like, I can't do HIIT training. It just doesn't, my body doesn't respond to it nicely at all. So I tend to do weight training and sort of light cardio. But I can imagine that sort of information that you guys are able to generate through your systems allows then the coach to go, okay, we now can adapt the training that we do to maximize the results.
Yeah, I would say that one of the differences, I mean, I'm also wearing a Garmin watch right now, and you were wearing, I think, maybe a Garmin or something like that.
It is
but
Garmin,
the product, and George and I mainly work with FirstBeat Life. It is what we call a professional wearable. So it's a slightly more sort of cumbersome device that it's not designed to be worn every day of the week, every day of the month. It's more of a deeper dive, a professional look at the days, and then making a plan, and then trying that, and then maybe checking in again next month or a couple of weeks later or whatever, compared to the wearable devices that are designed to be worn all the time. It gives some kind of a general idea of what the numbers are like, but it doesn't show your full day and your journal, and kind of like to start really drawing the parallels between what you actually did and how your body reacted.
Yeah.
And one additional feature with the FirstBeat Life that particularly makes it a great tool for the coach or the PT or the wellness coach or whoever, they have access to that client's data via the admin portal that we have. So they don't have to wait till the client comes and they look at the watch and try to understand what it all means, but instead they get a very visual graphic view of the results on their own interface on their laptop, for example. So they can familiarize with that, and then that really supports the discussion with the client. And let's see what happened here. Why is this night looking like this? What were you doing, and what could we maybe do a little bit differently here?
Ryan, this is where I get really excited, because I think that Tiina says beautifully about that idea of the deep dive.
Yeah.
I think that that's where a personal trainer can become great versus good, right? It might be good, but could this help them become great? Because they're getting a lot more information. And I do believe in the power of data. I really do. I feel like if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think it could really just give that point of difference, that unique selling point from one personal trainer to another. And Tiina, I know when you talked about the deep dive that FirstBeat does a lot about heart rate variability. Do you want to just explain the value in that and how that could aid the PT or the corporate coach to really understand their client a lot more, and maybe give us a few examples of how that works in practice?
Yeah, and maybe also after the podcast, maybe we can include a couple of graphs of the sort of a 24-hour graph from the FirstBeat Life, because I think that visual will really support that. But heart rate variability is the phenomenon that we measure. So it means the variation in time between consecutive heartbeats. So how much at millisecond level, how much that time varies from one beat to the next. And we use that as a window into the autonomic nervous system. So when the heart rate variability it drops and heart rate is high, that means that the sympathetic or the fight or flight part of the nervous system is active. So that's what helps us, all of us, or at least George and I are probably on some kind of slight fight or flight right now, because it's a little bit, not maybe nervous, but kind of exciting to be talking to you guys. And so we have to be up for this, and it elevates activation level in the body. But then the other part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic part, that's when heart rate variability increases and the heart rate drops. And the idea, what we're really looking at the balance between these two sides of the nervous system to make sure that people are able to switch off, at least when they sleep, for example. So the individual PT doesn't really need to dive deep into the sort of the logic and the theory of heart rate variability per se.
Yeah.
But the reason that we use the device that we use is because we get very, very accurate, valid data from all parts of the daily life, while exercising, while sleeping, while working, whether you are male or female, large or small. So that kind of a device really captures that data very accurately. And then we feel like we can draw reliable conclusions from that.
Tiina, you mentioned the fight or flight response, because, as a resilience coach, we worry that many people out there, if we call it the stress pandemic, there are many people out there that are in fight or flight a lot of the time. If they're suffering high stress at work, has that actually turned off? And what would be the dangers that you guys can see through the FirstBeat data if that person is living too much in that fight or flight? What would be the consequences of that? And because that really has impact when you could discuss that with someone about the importance of switching that off.
Yeah, it's kind of like driving your car with the gas pedal pushed to the floor the whole time. If you do that, you can perform well for a while, but sooner or later you run out of gas. And in a way that's what happens with the person too, that if your body is in that flight or flight system, even when you are sleeping. So you might be physically asleep, but if your heart is kind of working overtime and your nervous system is constantly active, the sleep is not restorative. And somebody might be able to handle that for a few weeks or a few months, but depending on the personal threshold and their general health, sooner or later the body starts wearing down, and it could be burnout, or it could be some other chronic fatigue syndrome, or some other kind of stress-related illnesses. It could be just getting sick all the time, like catching a cold or catching COVID or whatever, different kind of infections. So either physical or mental health begins to break down if we are just constantly pushing and not restoring at all.
Yes, that's powerful, isn't it, Ryan?
Well, absolutely. I'm adamant that my CFS was caused by just basically too much. I think we always call it sort of adrenal fatigue, but I'm adamant that that's what caused mine. But you're right, and I think that's really important for as an industry for us to understand, whether that be from coaches, wellness coaches, and throughout. Because if we're going into companies, we need to understand how that looks like. So the wellness programs are put in place to allow the employees to switch off. From a sort of coaching perspective, we need to understand that when our clients are coming in, what that lifestyle is and how the lifestyle is impacting, as well as the training, so that we can gear it around. Because as you guys well know, a lot of PTs will look at it and go, okay, we want to lose weight, we want to get fit, whatever it is, and they simply focus on that hour that they're with the client. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at what else is going on in life that could impact that hour, impact that training time and the results. Because ultimately, if they go in there and they're hammering high hit training for an hour, but that person's like you say, they've got elevated, they're living in that fight and flight mode permanently, that type of training isn't going to support their goals, because they're already worn out before they even turn up to the session. Yeah. So I guess the data you guys provide is going to help that PT to go, okay, what's the best solution? Because it may be they need to work on the wellness side of it even before they get to the training side. So we need to find a way of getting this person to switch off, to bring those levels down, to then allow us to move forward. And that's massive. If as a PT, if you can say that to someone, right, we need to work on this first. So whether we go down the yoga, the relaxation, the polite, go down that route first, and then we're going to go into the heavy training, and that would be huge for a coach to be able to say.
Yeah. So I mean, going back to your point, Glenda, about the USP of this, for a personal trainer, and where does this benefit them? We talk a lot about it internally about, okay, FirstBeat, something like FirstBeat Life, where it is that kind of more in kind of focused 1 to 5 day measurement period. Yeah. It gives the coach the insights into what's happening outside of the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So Ryan, you just nailed it there, where okay, they come into the gym and they've got a program all laid out for them, and it could be a HIIT workout, it could be just cardio, it could be strength training, whatever it might be, but that person might not necessarily be ready for that. Or like you say, there might be other things going on in their life, like they're not recovering properly, maybe they're drinking alcohol at nighttime and not really telling anyone about it. So maybe all that person needs is a nice little walk on the treadmill, chatting to his coach, right, for 20 minutes, right? So it just gives them this total kind of 24-hour perspective of their life. And I think that also kind of leans into, you look at, let's say the kind of gym, the facility, right? So let's say the gym, the actual facility, the actual health club, let's say, it's giving them far more insights into what's happening with all their members, again, outside of what's happening inside the gym. That makes sense.
Well, I'm actually thinking, Ryan, where I see some huge potential is it would be so lovely for a new member as part of their onboarding process that during their first month, they could get the 3-day experience of having the FirstBeat device. And then the coach, the wellbeing coach, as I push this idea that in the industry, we're going to see wellbeing coaches soon. How lovely would it be, Ryan, when someone actually shows you your life in data? Because I'm a great believer that we can be consciously incompetent or blissfully ignorant. And this just really raises the consciousness, doesn't it? And can show you some really quite illuminating stats that might make you then really realize what's going on. And I'm all for things that can educate our members and also empower them as well. And I think that there's nothing better than giving people that evidence. It's really quite powerful. So I think there's also opportunity Ryan, between onboarding and maybe even retention strategies?
Oh, absolutely. I think something like this is so powerful at the start. I remember when I joined the industry, mid-90s, and everybody had blood pressure taken. We didn't have the technology we have today, but even down to the blood pressure, heart rate, we did fitness tests with everybody before they were allowed in the gym. All that's gone now, but the power that had to be able to sit down with someone and go, okay, your blood pressure's raised, and you're able to give that data back. But this is next level. You're sort of going, okay, this is where you're at. This is your life cycle over the last 3 days. This is where we need to look at. And actually, maybe training isn't the first thing we start at. Maybe we need to do this. And you start doing that with clients. One, you get a powerful buying from that client right from the outset, because they're going, these guys have an interest in me. They're interested in me for starters. Yeah. They want to see my life change, not just get me in and hammer me on a treadmill or whatever it is. They generally want to see me improve. And that isn't just about, I'm going to weigh you, I'm going to tell you, yes, the Tiiina scales and all those sort of things have their place as well, because you can see your body fat percentage and all that. But combined with all that, you really do get a full spectrum of what this person's lifestyle is, and then go, okay, now we're going to change lives. And I think that is hugely powerful in our industry, and something we don't do as well as what we should be doing, really. And that's
really, I think oftentimes it's like a conversation starter. There is no right or wrong kind of result. There's nobody needs to aim for a perfect result, and we cannot say that it should be like this for everything to be balanced, because everybody's lives has ups and downs, and sometimes things are a little bit tougher and sometimes they're a little bit easier. But it's a great conversation starter and kind of making the invisible visible in some ways. And sometimes it's really small things. Sometimes it's just understanding that if I could just dedicate 30 to 40 minutes more for sleep every night, I would be able to charge my battery better. Or if I was just able to stick to a better rhythm and make sure that I have a conscious lunch break every day, or if I could just remember to pay attention to my evening routine so I could start recovering faster. It doesn't mean that you have to overhaul everything in your lifestyle, but concretely maybe attack a couple of things to make the balance a little bit better.
I love that, Tiina. Make the invisible visible. I love that. That's going to stay with me from today. But I also love that you mentioned sleep a lot today, because in corporate well-being right now, this is our number one challenge that we're seeing. And even all of the reports that are coming out, the most concerning reported data is in the lack of good sleep and people getting good sleep. And it is a real challenge. So I think that that's fascinating. I really do. I was going to ask maybe George, what can we learn then from the success of FirstBeat in other sectors? Because obviously it's not standard in the fitness wellness industry, our industry yet. What can you learn from other sectors about the success of FirstBeat that we could then consider for the fitness sector, when they enter this transition towards wellness?
Well, you heard Tiina mention earlier on about the sort of two divisions of FirstBeat, right? We have our sports division and the kind of wellness side, and Tiina mentioned some of the sport. I've actually got some of the stats here where we have like 25% of the Champions League teams, 40% of Premier League teams, 50% of NHL teams, 15% of NFL, 13% of NBA teams that are all using FirstBeat Sport, right, for their team performance side of things. And that's, it's essentially, it's HRV technology, it's stress, it's recovery, it's training load, etc. So that the learnings from that, the success in that, right? If you move that into the sort of what I've kind of branded, or I've heard thrown around the term, the corporate athlete, right? Now, the corporate athlete being your kind of senior leadership, your executive leader, which is like the experience that we've got in that's again stemmed from sport, and it's come from, let's say, Formula One, right? So the Formula One drivers, we all know they're under extreme amounts of stress and pressure and physical load, etc. So I think what's happened over time is that this has been quite exclusive to the kind of elitist, right? So whether it's elite sports athletes, elite corporate, the kind of top level corporate, and what they've learned by kind of the success of using this kind of technology as well. Why can't we kind of push that down the waterfall and make it more accessible to everyone else? And I think that's what's happened with data in general and wearables in general, right? It's become very, very accessible. Mm-hmm. So what we're sort of discussing now around the fitness industry of personal trainers, well, why can't they access the same technology and the same data that's proven to be hugely successful in that high level elite sport, the top level corporate leadership, etc., in terms of performance, right? Just making people perform better, feel better, and just generally be happier in their everyday lives,
Well, you make a really interesting point, because if you look at personal training, by the very nature that it's more expensive, personal trainers out there do get a huge number of corporate senior executives take personal training. And if you could give a service that delivers at that level, I think that's amazing. I'm even thinking, Ryan, that a club could do a corporate program using personal trainers and FirstBeat for the corporate audience, which we've not done a brilliant job of in our industry tapping into. It never fails to surprise me that many corporates don't go to their local fitness club for the well-being solution. They will come online and find a company like me. And I've often wondered why we've not done, and I know Ryan, when I had my clubs, we were very successful at tapping into the corporate market in our area. And I think there's a market there too. And I think Josh says that beautifully,
So that's actually, you'd be pleased to know, Glenda, that it's happening. One of our partners, kind of local to me, their facility is within an industrial estate, and they have access to thousands of office workers, right? And they're already doing corporate programs with the gym facility, for just as in, benefits to come and use the club, etc., because it's on their doorstep. But they're now working on a program to take FirstBeat to like an office of 300 office workers.
Right? Just out of interest, George, do you guys work with? I know it's probably a newer market for you guys in terms of the gyms and stuff, but do you guys work with the clubs to go, okay, this is how you analyze the data. This is in essence the solutions or the potential solutions to work with the data that you're seeing? Is that how you guys work with? So when you train these trainers or clubs and whatever, do you teach them, okay, here's the data over the 3 days, this is what it means, but also this is the potential interventions that you can help and support that client with?
Yes. So typically we have an onboarding process, right? So when a partner comes on board, we have a FirstBeat certification program, right? So every new partner, every personal trainer, they will be FirstBeat certified by us, and it's an online modular training that Tiina worked very hard on putting together, and Tiina is our master trainer, and that will get them the FirstBeat certification. So, like Tiina said earlier on, it's not going to give them a degree in heart rate variability, but it's going to help them understand how to interpret the data and how to really, use it for their clients. Anything deeper than that would be a slightly more kind of, let's say, bespoke service, where if we're working in particular with a large corporate opportunity, then, Tiina or Nigel Stockhill, one of our master trainers, we might host kind of bespoke webinars, where we can bring in the audience and we can do the presentations on the data, on the information. But ultimately, it's always the partner or the coach that will have that one-to-one, interaction. And support-wise, we're always there if they have questions. That Tiina regularly, a lot of Tiina's week is filled with just meeting and talking to partners and helping them understand how to get the most out of the data.
And that's really the whole idea, is that we provide the tech and the knowledge that the coach, whether they are nutrition coach or a psychologist or a personal trainer or a fitness coach or whatever kind of coaching they're doing, that they take this tool, FirstBeat Life tool, into whatever else they are offering. Most successful ones are clearly ones who who already have maybe their core knowledge might be personal training and making training programs or weight training programs or something like that, but then they can just add this element to their toolkit so that to get that more comprehensive view of that. But that's really the idea, that this by themselves rarely like solves a person's problems, but it's a great additional tool to many kind of offerings.
I'd also take this opportunity to plug one of our good friends, Ollie Patrick.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're aware of the Ollie Patrick.
Ollie,
of course you do. The future practice course.
Yeah.
That he runs. For, I think it's predominantly for the fitness industry, for PTs who are looking to kind of shift or move that needle more into wellness. I mean, I'm halfway through the course myself now, and it's brilliant. I mean, Ollie's probably a bit frustrated I haven't finished it yet, but it's just, but it is. I mean, it's an amazing course, and it focuses very much on the topics we're discussing now. So in some cases, we are saying, well, look, if you wanted that extra, more in-depth, certification, and I don't know the number of hours of training it is, but it's very physiological based and in-depth. And I think Tiina, you actually worked a little bit with Ollie on that, didn't you? But
I reviewed it. But once they had it done, I took it myself, and then I wrote a fairly extensive review of that on their LinkedIn site a couple of years ago. But it is a very good comprehensive course with a wide range of topics around physiology and psychology and nutrition and just many different aspects.
Guys, I know this is a little bit of a challenging one. I know I always say when Ryan and I do these podcasts that if you do not want to go towards wellness and you stay in your lane, I think it's just fantastic that you know what you are, right? But Ryan also will tell you, and I know you know, George, from us spending time together, how passionate I am about wellness. And, my clubs were doing this before it was ever sexy. So I guess what I want to ask you both, and just a really sharp, what is the elevator pitch for the guys out there that are still not sure and just happy sitting in their fitness lane and have not tapped in towards that wellness? What's the elevator pitch? What would you say to them?
Well, I'll start. I'll say that there is no fitness without wellness in many ways. That if you can train as hard as you want, you can work your muscles and work your body like crazy day after day. But if you're not looking at the big picture, if you're not recovering enough and you're not sleeping enough, your performance is not going to improve, whether you are an elite athlete or a corporate athlete or just a regular person who tries to get fitter. So all that training, it's kind of to waste unless you look at the big picture. So that's my pitch for today.
I like it.
That was brilliant. What she said.
just out of interest, guys, because obviously you guys work with obviously elite sports, but you're also obviously working with corporate athletes and so on. Do you see similarities in terms of the results that come back through the FirstBeat? So would you, I don't know, from the stresses and the strains of daily life and how that impacts the body, is there similarities in terms of how the body's responding, whether they're an elite athlete training like they do 5 days a week, 7 days a week, and this corporate athlete? Is there things that you sort of pick up and go, actually, there's some commonalities here that we could move from one to the other in terms of guidance?
Well, I would say that there's many similar. I mean, basically, the human physiology is very much the same, regardless of who you are. Obviously, if you are in elite physical fitness, it protects you from some things, but the basic balance idea is the same. I would say that the big difference is that in elite sports, you have to really fine-tune every aspect of your life because you're fighting for those last seconds or the last millimeters to win that gold medal or to win the tournament or whatever. Whereas I would say that the normal person, we don't have to be quite as hard on ourselves. We can be more merciful and understanding, and we can allow those kind of off days, and we can still go out and have a party sometimes and have a terrible recovery. And we can sort of, we don't have to aim for perfection, because usually when you do that, it ends up kind of not working so well for you. So we can accept the ups and downs of life a little bit better than athletes can, but at the same time we still can't completely forget that we do have to make sure and pay attention that we get that recovery and we get that sleep as well.
You know, it's really funny in the work that I do in resilience. We do talk a lot about not just burnout, where in burnout people can show up exhausted or in high stress. We see the exact same when people are in bore out, when they're bored in their job. So I would actually quite love, which I'm going to follow up with you guys. I'd love to actually do that as a bit of an experiment. Put a FirstBeat device on one of my clients who is honestly at the moment in bore out, and then someone that's in burnout, because it's quite amazing how they both present in a way that there are these correlations, Ryan, and I think that would be a fascinating little study too. Because
out of interest, guys, because obviously when people look at these things from the outset, they sort of go, "Oh, this must be really expensive tech to put into our businesses." Is what I mean, it obviously may differ depending on what you guys are doing, but if a personal trainer or a gym or someone like that wanted to get involved with you guys, what sort of numbers? I mean, we may throw you under the bus a little bit here, but what sort of numbers are we looking at? Is it a viable thing and an easy thing to for clubs to go, actually, that investment's worth it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the commercial model that we operate on is a licensing model, right? Okay. So, so as with most, kind of data or kind of recurring or SaaS models, software as a service models, we work in a licensing. So for let's say a facility, a health club or something to get involved with us, they would typically purchase, let's say, a stock of the devices from us. Now, those devices can be sold on, right? So they can be sold on, so the end user can have their own device, or they could actually be rotated, right? So they could be used. One device can be circulated, and then each individual user will have their own license because we've got an application, the FirstBeat Life mobile app. A bit like a Netflix subscription, right? You can sort of subscribe monthly. You can buy 3 months in advance. You can buy 12 months in advance. So that's the model that we work on, and we have partner pricing, right? So obviously we have the cost pricing, so to speak, for our partners, and then it's up to them how they build that into their programs. Okay. And I suppose that's the best way I can explain it is because, the way that we see it with FirstBeat Life, it's very much a supportive solution, right? If you're a PT, if you're a health and well-being coach, if you're a corporate well-being coach, you're delivering a program, right? And that might include, 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, or it might, it could incorporate many different things.
Yeah.
And FirstBeat is just one of those tools, right? Yeah. So we will charge the partner for that. We never charge the end user, right? Yeah. So they're your clients. Amazing. You charge what you charge, and you manage those licenses as well. So everything's managed by the partner, and we have a set sort of fee for that. And then
so that's great, Ryan, because just Absolutely. Like other solutions in the fitness industry that are on the same premise with a license, what's also lovely about FirstBeat is they can then sell potentially more coaching sessions off the back of that license, which is not always the case with other solutions.
So I just didn't want people to look at this and go, "Oh God, this looks like it could be really expensive." And, and it really, I know you obviously haven't given a price here, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. And I guess with anything that we want to bring into a new market or to get people to buy in and see the value of it, is sort of going, okay, I can take this technology and it adds huge value to what I'm selling. So one, I can sell more of them, but also I'm going to get more longevity, because what I'm putting in there is giving real value back to the customer.
Yeah, so that's it's got a lot of wins, hasn't it, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Glenn, what you said there about the kind of value of the extra coaching sessions, right? So, it's a licensing model, and anyone listening to this that wants to get in touch, obviously, and get in contact and understand what the partner pricing is, then we can discuss that, no problem. But the like I said, the value is, let's say if you have a client or an end user who's on a 12-month program, or sorry, a 3-month program with you, and they want to use FirstBeat Life, there's nothing wrong with you giving them a 12-month license, right? So if they've got a 12-month license, then their connection to you via FirstBeat extends way beyond the initial 3-month term.
And I think that's what we've got to be doing in this industry. Even if they had a break from the gym and they were still connected through that 12-month subscription, and they get some benefit out of the gym as well, it's all about that seamless, the gym with no walls, we call it, don't we, Ryan?
Yeah, we stole that from a few of our guests. Rich and Bobby, they're big believers in gyms with no walls.
I like that. I've not heard that.
Yeah, we like that when they said it. I mean, amazing, guys. I think that you've demonstrated beautifully why I feel people should reach out to you if they're on that journey. We do. Ryan will fill you in on how we make sure people can get in touch with you. Are you going to ask the guys the final question that we always surprise?
Yes, I will. So with all of our guests, and we don't mind who goes first, we like to ask what inspires you, what makes you do what you do. Now, some people say family, some people say a certain book, but it's really what gets you to do what you guys do. So let's start with George, and we'll finish with Tiina.
I think. That's changed for me over time, right? And I'm going to tell you more recently. This might be quite a common answer, but it's probably my kids. Right. And more specifically, it's their sort of.
Don't say one kid.
No. Yeah, more specifically,
the daughter's more important than the other one.
It's definitely my kids. I found that as they've got older and as I've got a little bit older, your priorities change. And when I see my kids and more specifically because of my passion in golf, they're both very academic, they're both amazing, but they're also both golfers. And the kind of rewards that I get from watching them play golf and starting to compete and sort of starting that journey, that just inspires me, every day just to think about.
I hope you've got them on a FirstBeat device. Just saying.
My daughter actually she's doing her exams, right? And it's actually something that I'm going to talk to Tiina about using it on her to look at that. Yeah. That's a totally different thing. But my kids, Ryan. It's all about the kids now, isn't it? And I just want to see.
Absolutely. Mine are teenagers, so it's great to see them going through. Funnily enough, my lad starts his A levels today, so he's got his first exam this morning. So good luck to him. But yeah, I know how that feels. My lad plays cricket. I was cricket all the way through, and watching him develop and grow and perform is such an amazing thing to do. So absolutely. And yourself, Tiina?
Well, I'd say on a larger scale, similar. My kids, my two boys are big. They are 23 and 27, and it's just amazing to continue watching them grow and find their path in life. And so obviously my family is kind of the basic resource in life. But on a real personal level, I think just in general, nature and outdoors and getting outside, that's where I draw my personal energy. I don't do serious sports anymore. I'm very much sort of a casual. I enjoy getting out and staying healthy and getting active. And so whenever I have an opportunity to enjoy the beauty of nature somewhere, whether it's when I'm traveling on some mountains or the lakes in Finland or the forest right next to my house. So that's kind of where I draw my personal energy on a daily basis.
Just a quick one, Tiina, because you've been an elite athlete, I always like to ask this. When you go out skiing now, can you just relax, or do you go, no, I'm winning? I'm winning. I can't finish that.
You have to ask that. I would say that in all other sports, I'm very much just out there to enjoy it. I can go walking or rowing or kayaking or anything. But when I ski, I don't know how to do it very casually. And I'm a technically better skier than what my fitness would say me to be. And I constantly push myself too hard when I go out skiing. So that's a hard one.
I'm getting a vision in my mind about Bridget Jones' Diary in her film when she pretends she can ski. And then she goes and they put her on the black run and she snowplows the whole way down. I think that would be us if we went with Tiina.
Absolutely. You can just imagine, can't you? Go, come on, we'll just go out for a nice little ski and Tina's off. 3 miles ahead of the rest of us. I'm not losing.
It's a story for another time, but I've been in a rowing boat with Tiina. and Tiina was up the front, doing the commands and telling us what to do, and then it was me, Craig, and Nigel Stockhill at the back.
Well, you were drinking beer.
Is that not what you do in team building activities?
Well, in our world, possibly.
That was the clear difference in cultures there. When we went to Finland, and it was quite a competitive team building activity, and we found pleasure sitting at the back with our cans of beer. But never mind. We did our best. We did our best.
Hey, before we go, I should mention the event that we're going to be at an event in London here. George and I and a couple of our other colleagues. It's an integrative and personalized medicine conference in London, and there is a workshop day on July 1st where we're doing a FirstBeat workshop. And if anybody listening is interested, you can contact us and we can get you a free pass to that workshop day. So it's in central London in Queen Elizabeth Centre, I think it is, but I think it'll be an interesting event with a bunch of workshops, and one of them is ours. So fantastic. Let us know if you're interested.
What we'll do, Tiina, we'll put that link. If you send me the link, we'll put that link at the end, or the link for you guys for the inquiries. So if anybody does want to join that, because it sounds a fascinating event. If anyone wants to jump onto that, give Tiina or George a shout, and they'll get you booked onto it. Well, I've really enjoyed that. Time has absolutely flown by, so really appreciate your time this morning. We will obviously put all your links and everything at the end. If anybody does want to get in touch with Tiina or George about bringing FirstBeat into their club or into their studio, then definitely give these guys a shout. It would massively enhance your business. So I would advise everybody to at least get in touch with you guys, find out more, find out whether it's suitable for their business, and to go from there. And just to point out, obviously, we want to thank you guys because you guys are a sponsor of this podcast. So thank you very much, obviously, for supporting us. So absolutely. So we will end it there. Thank you very much for your time today, and we will get you on again soon, I'm sure. Thank you.